So I've always wanted to make a parts caster, and I've had so many people say to me, you know, you could make a parts caster and it could be just as good as maybe even a custom shop level guitar. So what I'm doing in this 4-part series is putting a parts caster together. The twist is that I'm then going to be raffling it off for charity as part of my charity fundraising organisation, which is called the Pink Guitar Project. You can see one part of that project here. That's a Fender player Strat that was donated by a guitar shop called Peach Guitars. That's going to be in a package with a Marshall amp and a fantastic pink overdrive pedal, the brown Protein. This parts caster is going to be raffled separately to that. It's going to be pink as well. It's also going to be a Strat, but it's going to have sort of boutique pickups. It's got a nitro paint job that I've had done on there, and then I'm going to be relicking it myself. But in today's episode, we're going to see what goes into choosing the parts for a parts caster. I'm going to take you through that. In the second episode, you're going to watch me relic this thing. I'm a bit worried. It's been properly professionally painted by a friend, Ash, who has an Instagram called Time Traveler Guitars. Check him out. And he's put a mystery color under this pink, which I'm going to expose, hopefully, as I relic it. I've never done relicking before, so if I muck it up, I will have to pay him to do it again. So there's a little bit riding on that. In the next part, the third part, we'll then do the wiring, which is also new to me, but I've been practicing with my soldering iron. And then in the fourth part, we'll put it all together finally. I'll do a setup, and I will then play it. We'll hear what it sounds like. So I'm really excited. Let's kick off and see what goes into a parts caster. I think the parts caster's just arrived and I'm super excited, so rather than wait for my camera rig to be set up, I want to open this thing. This is the one I'm going to be relicking myself. I can just see a hint of pink there. I'm super excited. It's a bit darker in real life than it's coming out on the iPhone, but we'll get some proper shots in a little while. Oh. So this is not the one I've made myself. This is, as I said, the parts caster. So we bought the body and the neck. Wow. That is gorgeous. And somewhere in here should be a neck that we bought. Okay, so here's it's a pretty bright green, but I think it will work well. Aha. Right, well, I'm going to open this all up, take it upstairs, get some proper shots, and we're going to talk about what I'm going to do to this next. Okay, so as you can see, there are loads of parts, and in fact, I haven't even got all the parts yet, but that's for a reason. I'll explain that in a minute. When you start wanting to build a parts caster, there are sort of like an order of things you should think about first. Obviously, the first one is, what guitar do you want to make? You know, I think Strats and Telecasters are probably the easiest guitars to do like this, but I'm sure there are all sorts of great shapes and super Strats and other things on the market. We wanted to go for a vintage style Strat, and that's what we have. Man, this thing is come out really, really beautifully. So the main decisions to make are, which Strat configuration are you going to go for? We've gone for 3 single pickups, which is obviously the traditional way, and a tremolo. So you can see with a tremolo, you're going to get the spring cavity on the back. You're going to have to install the claw for these springs, and not too complicated. But on the other hand, if you want something really versatile, I mean, not necessarily more versatile, but having a humbucker is really versatile, I find. You can have an HSS here, could still have a tremolo, or quite often you could have a hardtail. So these are going to have these string ferrules and like a Telecaster straight through. and it's a slightly different sound, slightly less traditionally Stratocaster, a little bit more direct and less sort of springy sounding, as ridiculous as that sounds. Okay, let's go back to the pink one. Okay, so once you've chosen your configuration, I would then decide what sort of neck you want. I've gone for a rosewood neck with 21 frets. It's not particularly massive, it's not particularly small. As you spend more on the neck, you can probably choose more about the exact carve and shape. But this one is okay. The main issue I have is that the ends of the frets need a little bit of glue dabbed in there. They haven't really got any, so I'll use a dark glue, and in the setup video I'll show you a bit more about that. You're gonna want to make sure that you've got level frets, which I'll show you again in the setup video, and this has a traditional screw truss rod, and we'll check that the neck is not bowed or anything again in the setup video, so if you follow along, that'll be in the last episode. Okay, so there are so many parts needed to make these guitars that it could be a bit surprising to you. Let's start at the top here. You're going to have to get your tuners, of course, but to make it complicated, there's not just one size. There's like a vintage size, which we have here, which is 8 point something mils. It comes from the imperial inches measurement. On the modern ones, you might get a 10mm hole, and it's a metric measurement. And again, there are so many different types of tuners. We've gone for these slotted ones here, which I really like. They're on most of my guitars. And these are slightly aged Goto ones, which I've used before. And it's the hole size that will determine what tuner and what these ferrules will be different sizes, basically. Even with the right size ferrule, once this has been sprayed, you're going to find you need to make the hole a little bit bigger again. So there's a bit of work to be done. But if you want to go for that really traditional look, I'd recommend something like this is going to look right, as you'd expect. Okay, then when it comes to the body, there's obviously a ton of parts that you're going to need. We've gone for this mint green pick guard, and I think it's a little bit too greeny. But I think once we start to relic the guitar, and maybe if I can age this a little bit, I think it's going to look pretty cool. So let's start from this end and work our way that way. Here's what might surprise you. Obviously you're going to have to buy a neck plate and the 4 screws, but the neck doesn't have the holes in. So I'm going to show you in the 4th part. We might end up doing 5 parts actually, now I think about it. This one, the relicking, the wiring, the setup and putting together, and then maybe a 5th part with the playing, I think actually is going to make more sense. So yeah, we're going to have to make those holes in order to bolt this all together. Then you're going to have your pickups. This is where you can have loads and loads of fun. A huge market of pickups, from sort of semi-boutique, you know, slightly more mass-produced ones, all the way to people wiring them in you know, small batches. I've actually got a set for this, which is a really exciting set. It's the first one on the market from Sun Bear Pickups that he's calling the 5969 set. And I've currently got them in this guitar here. What it means is in the neck position, there's a 69 style. So that's a post CBS or a CBS pickup, which has a grey bottom. It means the flatware on the pickup is grey. And it has different specs to it. And it's going to get you more that, you know, late 60s Hendrixy vibe. And then the other two are 59, so they're more what you'd class with the, you know, the 50 style guitars, which I have on things like this, which is a 50 style Strat, and a little bit less sort of furry edged and a bit probably lower output and more brittle, but great. So it's a really diverse set. So this is proper, you know, covers a gamut from the late 50s through the late 60s here, which I love, to be honest with you. Okay, then you're going to have your bridge, which is going to go in here. It's going to take a little bit of lining up, and then you're going to have to line it up with where the string through holes are, and then we'll screw it in. Now that's going to come with various parts. They come normally with the tremolo arm, and then on the back, they're going to come with this sort of claw that you screw into here, and they're going to come with 5 springs, and you can choose between 2 and 5, and we'll decide that when we're doing the setup. And then we're going to have to get a plate, and we'll have to make the holes to put the plate on. Not difficult, but just another little job to be done. Okay, then you're going to have your actual jack socket, and then the plate that goes on top of there. You'll notice inside there'll be a hole. That's where the wire comes through. So this will be under there, and we'll have to solder that into the switch. And then we're going to go through this in much more detail in the wiring episode, but you're going to need 3 pots. You're going to need the 3 knobs, the switch, and then inside you're going to need some wire, some solder, a soldering iron, a capacitor for the tone knob, and as I said, we'll go into that in more detail. I haven't ordered that because I'm not sure what colour's under here, and it might just affect, if we do a fun colour for the knobs and the switch tip, I wanted to order that at the end. And then yes, you're going to need plenty of screws. I've gone for really aged screws to put your pick guard in. Again, I'll show you how to do all of this. These are all jobs that require just a little bit of setup and care. They're not difficult as long as you've got some simple tools. Again, we'll go through that in that particular video. But yeah, there's always an extra part or two that you haven't thought about, and you end up making a couple of different orders. All right, so I hope you found that interesting. I needed to do an episode where I showed you the parts and how you plan these things, but really we want to get onto the fun stuff. So as I said, the next episode I'm going to be relicking this. We're going to be doing some lacquer checking. We're going to be doing some like aging in terms of, you know, where these things naturally might get aged, and we'll look at some of my relic guitars to sort of figure out what pattern of relicking I might like to put on here. There's the mystery colour, which I have a feeling I can see something under here. I'm not sure if you can, but who knows? Maybe I'll be surprised. I think that's going to be one of the more tense parts of this, is taking a knife and various other things. I did actually walk into a door the first day where I got this, so there's a bit of natural relicking there. But yeah, join me on that one, and if you enjoyed this, please subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to hit 7,500 subs before Christmas, and then I'll be giving away this pedal. This is a brown protein in white. One of my favourite pedals, dual overdrive with a blues breaker on one side and a Nobles ODR1 style green pedal on the other side. And 7,500 subs, I'll pick a winner. You just have to subscribe and comment somewhere. And this is, I think, probably the 5th giveaway, and I've sent pedals to quite a few different places. So wherever you are in the world, I'll pay for the postage. So see you in part 2. I'm hoping that won't be longer than a week away, but it could be sooner. If you hit the notification bell next to the subscribe button after you subscribe, you'll find out when it comes out. Anyway, see you then. But I'm going to put a list up for you now of all the parts that you're going to need, so you can always just screenshot this before you make your orders.